The air was thick with tension as I leaned against the cold metal wall of the elevator shaft, my fingers nervously tapping a rhythm against the edge of my sketchbook. I glanced sideways at Greta, who was peering intently at her camera, adjusting the settings for the umpteenth time. The fluorescent lights above flickered intermittently, casting an unsettling glow over the small space, mirroring the frustration brewing between us. Do you ever feel like we're just stuck? I finally broke the silence, unable to hold back the question that had been gnawing at me for weeks. Like, no matter how hard we try, nothing seems to move forward? Greta dropped her camera to her side and looked at me, her blue eyes reflecting a mix of understanding and annoyance. Stuck? Tommy, that's an understatement. I've been staring at the same blank canvas for days. Every time I try to capture something, it just falls flat. I nodded, feeling the weight of her words. Yeah, and I can't seem to translate the ideas in my head onto the paper. It's like they dissolve into thin air before I can get them out. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. Maybe we need a change of scenery or something. Go to that new gallery downtown? Get inspired? Greta shrugged, her gaze drifting back to her camera. I don't know if a gallery is what I need. I feel like I'm just chasing shadows. Everything I shoot feels lifeless. It's as if I've lost the spark that made me want to pick up the camera in the first place. Maybe we're too focused on the outcome, I suggested. What if we just created for the sake of creating? No pressure, no expectations. That sounds nice in theory, she replied, an edge of sarcasm creeping into her tone. But we both know that's easier said than done. Art doesn't just appear out of nowhere. Before I could respond, the elevator doors slid open with a creak, interrupting our conversation. We stepped inside the dimly lit compartment, the familiar scent of metal and grease filling the air. I pressed the button for our floor, and the doors closed with a soft thud. The machinery whirred to life, and I leaned back against the wall, letting out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. The elevator lurched, then halted abruptly, sending a jolt through my body. I exchanged a confused glance with Greta, who was frowning at the control panel. One of the buttons was glowing, a small, unmarked button that hadn't been there before. Did you see that? Greta asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Yeah, I replied, squinting at the button. I don't think that's supposed to be there. Should we press it? She asked hesitantly, her eyes wide with intrigue. I hesitated, glancing at her and then back at the glowing button. Something in me whispered that this was a chance to break free from our stagnation, to step into the unknown. What do we have to lose? I said finally, shrugging off the unease that had settled in my stomach. Greta bit her lip, contemplating. Okay, but if we get stuck in some weird dimension, I'm blaming you. Fair enough, I chuckled, feeling a sense of adventure creeping in. I reached out and pressed the button. The elevator let out a strange groan, and for a moment, I felt a rush of wind as if we were being pulled downwards. The lights flickered violently, and I grasped the rail tightly, my heart racing. Just as quickly as it had begun, the sensation stopped. The doors opened with a heavy sigh, revealing a dark corridor beyond. A chill swept through the space, sending shivers down my spine. I exchanged a glance with Greta, her expression a mix of excitement and trepidation. Welcome to wherever this is, I said, trying to mask my own apprehension with humor. Greta stepped forward cautiously, her camera held tightly in her hands, ready to document whatever lay ahead. It's eerie, she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. The corridor was dimly lit, the walls lined with strange, pulsating lights that seemed to beckon us further inside. I felt an odd pull, as if the very air around us was charged with something unnameable. It was both thrilling and terrifying. Do you think we should go in? I asked, glancing back at her. She nodded slowly, her curiosity outweighing her fear. I mean, we've come this far, right? What's the worst that could happen? Famous last words, I replied with a smirk, but I stepped forward, following her into the corridor. As we walked, the temperature seemed to drop even further, and I could see my breath hanging in the air like a ghostly cloud. We moved cautiously, the only sound our footsteps echoing against the cold tiles. The corridor twisted and turned, leading us deeper into the unknown. Each step felt like we were crossing an invisible threshold, leaving the familiar world behind. "Tommy," Greta said suddenly, breaking the silence. "Do you think we'll ever get back?" I paused, considering her question. "I don't know. But maybe this is exactly what we need. A chance to face whatever's holding us back." She looked at me, her expression softening. "You really believe that?" I nodded, trying to convince myself as much as her. "Yeah, I do. We've been stuck in our heads for so long. Maybe this is a way to break free." As we continued walking, the pulsating lights flickered more intensely, casting strange shadows that danced along the walls. I felt a mixture of fear and exhilaration, the thrill of stepping into the unknown pushing me forward. Just then, we reached a door at the end of the corridor, its surface covered in layers of peeling paint and strange symbols that seemed to shift in the low light. "Should we open it?" I asked, glancing at Greta. "Absolutely," she replied, her voice steady despite the uncertainty in her eyes. I grabbed the handle, and with a deep breath, pushed the door open. A wave of warmth washed over us, contrasting sharply with the cold corridor we had just traversed. The sight before us was astonishing, a room overflowing with color and chaos, a world of art and illusion. Greta gasped, her eyes wide with wonder. "This is incredible." The walls were adorned with vibrant murals, each one telling a story, each stroke of paint bursting with life. I stepped inside, feeling an electric energy coursing through the air. For the first time in what felt like ages, I was inspired. "What is all this?" I murmured, stepping closer to a mural that depicted a surreal landscape filled with fantastical creatures. "I don't know, but it feels like a dream," Greta said, her voice filled with awe. She raised her camera, capturing the essence of the room with a series of quick snaps. As I wandered further in, I noticed something strange, a series of old photographs pinned to a corkboard. I approached, my heart racing. The images were faded, but I recognized them instantly. They were photos of my childhood, moments I had long forgotten. "Greta, look at this," I called out, pointing to a picture of me as a kid, standing beside a makeshift easel, paintbrush in hand, a huge smile plastered across my face. She joined me, her eyes scanning the board. "These are amazing. They're like windows into your past." I chuckled, feeling a mix of nostalgia and pain. "Yeah, back when I actually believed in my art." "Maybe it's time to believe again," she said softly, her gaze shifting to a nearby mural that depicted a vibrant cityscape. "This place, it's full of potential. What if we can create something here together?" Her words ignited a spark within me, the idea of collaborating pulling me closer to her. But just as I was about to respond, a sudden wave of uncertainty washed over me. What if I couldn't live up to the vision? What if I failed again? Before I could voice my doubts, the atmosphere shifted. The room began to pulse, the colors swirling around us, and I felt a strong pull as if the very essence of creativity was beckoning us forward. "Let's do it," I said, my voice steady now. "Let's create something that reflects who we are, fears and all." Greta smiled, her eyes shining with determination. Together. And just like that, we stepped into the heart of our artistic journey, ready to face whatever came next. The door behind us closed softly, sealing our passage into a realm where our fears could become our greatest allies. As the elevator doors slid closed behind us, I felt a shiver run down my spine. The hum of the machinery was oddly comforting, but the weight of our conversation still lingered in the air. Greta leaned against the cold metal wall, her arms crossed tightly over her chest, a frown etched on her face. I could see the frustration bubbling just beneath the surface, the kind that stifled creativity and snuffed out the fire of inspiration. "Why is it so hard to create something real?" she asked, breaking the silence. Her voice was strained, and I couldn't help but feel the heaviness of her words. "I mean, I used to have so many ideas, so many stories to tell. Now it feels like every photo I take is just empty." I nodded, understanding all too well. I get it, Greta. I feel like I've been painting the same canvas over and over again, and every time I try to start fresh, I just end up with a mess. It's like I've lost my way. She looked at me, her hazel eyes searching for something, reassurance, perhaps, or maybe just a glimmer of hope. What happened to us, Tommy? We used to be so full of life and ideas. Now it's like we're just stuck. Before I could respond, the elevator came to a sudden halt. The jolt knocked us both off balance, and we exchanged nervous glances. I reached for the control panel, instinctively hitting the buttons to see if we could get moving again. But my heart sank as I noticed a button glowing brightly, one that I had never seen before. "Did you see that?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. Greta leaned closer, her brow furrowing in confusion. "What the hell is that?" she whispered, pointing at the button. "It wasn't there before." "I don't know," I replied, my curiosity piqued. "Should we?" "Of course we should." Greta interrupted, her excitement cutting through the tension. "What else are we going to do? Wait here until someone rescues us?" I chuckled, the sound nervous and unsteady. "I guess you're right. But what if it's dangerous?" She rolled her eyes, dismissing my concerns with a wave of her hand. "Dangerous is just another word for adventure. Come on, Tommy. Let's see where this goes." With a shared glance of determination, we both pressed the glowing button. The elevator shuddered, and I felt a rush of wind sweep through the small space, pulling us downwards. It felt like we were being swallowed by the building itself. I could hear the whir of the machinery around us, and then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the descent stopped. The doors creaked open to reveal a dimly lit corridor. A chill swept over me as I stepped into the dark space, and I could hear Greta's sharp intake of breath beside me. The air was thick with an unsettling energy, almost like walking into a forgotten dream. Flickering lights lined the walls, casting strange shadows that danced around us. I turned to Greta, who looked both terrified and exhilarated. "What do you think this place is?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I have no idea," I replied, scanning our surroundings. "But it feels significant. Like we're not supposed to be here." As we ventured deeper into the corridor, the atmosphere grew heavier. I could feel the weight of unspoken fears pressing down on us, and I glanced at Greta, trying to decipher the emotions playing across her face. Her brow was furrowed, and I could see her biting her lip, a telltale sign of her anxiety. Suddenly, a figure appeared at the end of the hallway, emerging from the shadows. My heart raced as we approached, and I felt a wave of recognition wash over me. It was Lucas, my childhood friend, the one who had grasped the intricacies of art and life with an ease I had always envied. "Tommy? Greta?" Lucas's voice was a soft echo, laced with a hint of something unsettling. He stepped closer, his eyes glimmering with a mix of warmth and something darker. "You found your way here. Welcome to the realm of hidden fears." I exchanged a glance with Greta, her expression a mix of confusion and disbelief. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "What is this place?" "This is the place where your deepest fears and regrets reside," Lucas explained, his gaze unwavering. "You've both been avoiding them for too long. This is a chance to confront what's buried inside you." Greta stepped back, shaking her head. "No, I don't want to deal with that. I came here to find inspiration, not to relive my nightmares." Lucas's expression softened. "I understand. But facing your fears is the only way to move forward. You can't escape them forever." I felt a knot form in my stomach. Facing my fears? The very thought made my palms sweat. What if I couldn't handle it? What if I crumbled under the weight of my own insecurities? But deep down, I also knew that Lucas was right. We couldn't keep running. Greta hesitated, her eyes darting between Lucas and me. "Okay, so what do we do? How do we escape this place?" Lucas gestured for us to follow him deeper into the corridor. "You need to confront your fears to find the way out." There's a door at the end of this hallway that will reveal what you need to face. As we walked, the walls seemed to close in, the flickering lights casting eerie patterns around us. My heart raced, and I could feel the weight of uncertainty pressing down on my chest. What would I find behind that door? Would it be the memories I wanted to forget, or something worse? Finally, we reached the door he had mentioned, its surface covered in vibrant graffiti. It was a stark contrast to the cold, sterile walls of the corridor. The colors swirled and twisted, creating chaotic images that seemed to pulse with life. "Are you ready?" Lucas asked, his voice steady but gentle. Greta took a deep breath, her shoulders relaxing slightly. "I guess we don't have much choice, do we?" I nodded, trying to summon the courage within me. "Together?" I asked, reaching for her hand. "Together," she affirmed, her grip firm around mine. With a shared look of determination, we pushed open the door, a rush of air flooding our senses as we stepped inside. What lay beyond was a world unlike anything I had ever imagined, a vibrant explosion of colors and shapes, a surreal landscape that seemed to shift and change with every blink. It was a room filled with art, but not just any art. This was a world where our memories and emotions manifested into physical forms. As I looked around, I saw pieces that reflected both Greta's and my own lives, intertwining in ways I couldn't yet comprehend. Greta moved forward, her eyes wide with wonder. "This is incredible," she exclaimed, reaching out to touch a piece that seemed to shimmer with a life of its own. "It's like all of our pasts are here, laid bare for us to see." I felt a pang of fear at her words. But what does it mean? Is this just a dream, or is it a nightmare? Lucas interrupted, a knowing smile on his face. "That's for you two to discover. Each piece of art here holds a fragment of your fears. You must engage with them if you want to find your way back." Greta took a step back, suddenly overwhelmed. I don't know if I can do this." "You can, Greta," I urged, stepping closer to her. "We're in this together, remember? We can face whatever this is." With a deep breath, she nodded, her resolve returning. "Okay. Let's see what's here." As we moved deeper into the room, the atmosphere shifted, and I could feel the tension building. I could see a painting on the far wall that drew my attention, a haunting image of a boy standing alone, surrounded by swirling colors that mirrored my own feelings of isolation and longing. It struck a chord deep within me, and I felt compelled to approach it. "Tommy, wait!" Greta called out, but I was already lost in the painting. The boy in the artwork looked so familiar, his expression one of sorrow and abandonment. I realized, with a jolt, that he resembled me as a child. This is me," I breathed, my voice trembling as I reached out to touch the canvas. "This is the boy I left behind when I chose recognition over passion." Lucas stepped beside me, his expression contemplative. "What do you feel when you look at him?" I swallowed hard, fighting back the tears that threatened to spill. "I feel ashamed. I abandoned my true self in search of validation, and now I'm lost." Greta stood silently beside me, her gaze shifting between the painting and me. "You have to forgive that boy, Tommy. He's part of you, too." Her words hung in the air, a lifeline thrown into the depths of my despair. I took a deep breath, trying to embrace the emotions swirling inside me. "I'm sorry," I whispered, addressing the boy in the painting. "I didn't mean to leave you behind." As I spoke, I felt the tension within me begin to ease, as if acknowledging my past was a crucial step toward healing. And yet, I knew this was only the beginning. I turned to find Greta, who had moved to another piece of art that as we stepped through the door covered in graffiti, I felt an unusual rush of adrenaline mingled with anxiety. The room was vast, almost cavernous, filled with an array of colors that flickered in the low light. My heart pounded in my chest as my eyes adjusted, and I could see the art covering the walls, vibrant and chaotic. It was a world of illusions, and I couldn't help but feel a strange connection to the pieces that surrounded us. "Tommy, look at this!" Greta exclaimed, her voice echoing slightly in the vastness. She rushed to a wall where a series of photographs were displayed, each one capturing moments of joy and innocence. I followed her, my curiosity piqued. "Are those your childhood photos?" I asked, a hint of disbelief lacing my tone. "Yeah," she replied, her voice softening as she gazed at an image of herself at a birthday party, a wide grin plastered on her face. "I remember this day. I felt so free back then. Do you still feel that way?" I asked, trying to gauge her thoughts. "I don't know." Her expression changed, a shadow crossing her features. "I used to believe in my art, Tommy. Now, I feel like I'm just going through the motions." As she spoke, I could sense the weight of her insecurities pressing down on her. I wanted to reach out, to reassure her, but I was grappling with my own fears too. I turned away, scanning the room, hoping to find something that would ground me. That's when I noticed a large canvas tucked in the corner. My breath caught in my throat. It was a painting I had started as a child, the colors still bright but the lines chaotic, reflecting the turmoil within me. It was a figure of a boy, a younger version of myself, looking lost and abandoned. "Tommy, what's wrong?" Greta pulled me back to reality, concern etched on her face. I can't believe this is here," I stammered, stepping closer. "I thought I lost it. I abandoned it when I decided to chase a real career in art." Greta moved beside me, studying the painting. "What does it mean to you?" "It's complicated. It reminds me of everything I've left behind. The joy of creating without the burden of expectation." I paused, feeling the weight of my words. I was so focused on what others thought that I lost touch with what made me happy. Greta steadied me, her brow furrowed. "Maybe it's not too late to reconnect with that part of yourself." Her words hung in the air, a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. But before I could respond, the room shifted, the colors swirling and blending into a dizzying haze. I felt a pull, as if the very essence of the art was calling out to us. "Do you feel that?" I asked, my heart racing. "Yeah, it's like the art is alive," she whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, a tall woman with paint-splattered clothes and wild hair. She held a brush in one hand and a palette in the other, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Welcome, creators," she called out, her voice ringing with energy. "I'm here to challenge you, to push you beyond your limits. What will you create together?" "Together?" I echoed, glancing at Greta. "What do you mean?" "The world you see around you is a reflection of your fears and desires. But it can also be a canvas for your dreams," the woman explained, her gaze piercing through us. "You can transform this place, but only if you confront what's holding you back." Greta stepped forward, her determination evident. "We want to create something meaningful, but we're struggling with our fears." "Ah, the fears." The woman laughed, a sound filled with both joy and sadness. "They can be your greatest inspiration or your worst enemy. It's all in how you choose to perceive them." "Can we really turn our fears into art?" I asked, my skepticism rising. "Absolutely. But first, you must face them head-on. Are you ready to dive deep?" She gestured toward a blank canvas that seemed to shimmer with potential. Greta glanced at me, her eyes filled with a mix of excitement and trepidation. "What do you think, Tommy? Should we give it a try?" "Let's do it," I replied, feeling a spark of courage igniting within me. We stepped toward the canvas, and I could feel the energy in the room shift again, urging us to pour our hearts into our creation. As we began to paint, I felt the brush in my hand as an extension of myself. Each stroke was cathartic, allowing me to express emotions I had long buried. I painted the boy from my earlier piece, but this time, he was surrounded by a vibrant landscape of colors, representations of joy, fear, and hope. Greta worked beside me, her brush gliding across the canvas with grace. "Look, Tommy, the colors are blending beautifully," she said, her voice filled with awe. "Yeah, it's like they're coming alive," I replied, lost in the moment. I can almost feel the emotions flowing through me. But as we painted, shadows began to creep into our creation, distorting the image. I felt a chill run down my spine, and I stepped back, anxiety creeping in. What's happening? Why does it feel wrong? Tommy, we're facing our fears, Greta said, her voice steady. It's part of the process. But what if we can't overcome them? I muttered, my pulse quickening. Then we embraced them. They're a part of us, she insisted, her eyes fierce with determination. Let's keep going. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. We continued to paint, and the shadows transformed into darker aspects of our fears. I watched as the boy in my painting began to morph into a reflection of my insecurities, the fear of failure, the anxiety of not being good enough. Tommy, look! Greta exclaimed, her voice breaking through my haze. This is your fear taking shape. You have to confront it. But how? I whispered, panic rising within me. By acknowledging it, she said firmly. Tell it what you feel. What does it represent? I hesitated, but my heart raced as I stepped closer to the canvas. You represent everything I've run from. You're the doubts that plague me, the voice that tells me I'm not worthy of being an artist, I said, feeling the weight of those words. As I spoke, the painting seemed to pulse, the shadows reacting to my confession. I could almost hear their whispers, taunting and mocking me. But Greta stood strong beside me, her unwavering presence lending me strength. Now, let's transform it. Greta shouted, her brush moving with fierce purpose. We can't let it define us. With renewed determination, I picked up the brush again. Together, we added strokes of bright colors, reds for passion, yellows for hope, and blues for serenity. With every stroke, I felt the shadows begin to dissipate. The boy in the painting started to smile, a glimmer of confidence breaking through the darkness. Look, it's changing! I exclaimed, all washing over me. It's becoming something beautiful. Yes. Greta cheered, her excitement infectious. We're creating our own narrative, Tommy. As we continued to paint, I felt a sense of liberation. The shadows no longer felt menacing. They had transformed into a reminder of the struggles we faced and the strength we gained by confronting them. Greta, this is incredible, I said, my voice filled with wonder. We're taking back our power. She smiled brightly, her eyes shining with joy. This is just the beginning, Tommy. We can create whatever we want. With that, we poured our hearts into the canvas, allowing our fears to guide us but not control us. The painting became a tapestry of our journey, a testament to our resilience and creativity. As we completed it, I felt a sense of pride swell within me. In that moment, I realized that the boy in the painting was no longer lost. He was a reflection of my potential, a reminder of the artist I had always been. I turned to Greta, and we exchanged a smile that spoke volumes, a bond forged through our shared struggles and triumphs. Let's keep creating, I said, feeling invigorated. Let's not stop here. Absolutely, Greta replied, her enthusiasm infectious. There's so much more we can explore together. As we stood there, surrounded by our creation, I knew that we had not only faced our fears, but had also begun to redefine who we were as artists. The journey was far from over, but for the first time in a long time, I felt ready to embrace whatever came next. As I stood in the dimly lit space of the enigmatic room, the artist I had met earlier was busy at work, her paintbrush flying across the canvas with a fervor that was almost electric. I could feel the energy emanating from her, and yet, I felt a strange sense of foreboding. The mural she was creating seemed to pulse with life, reflecting an amalgamation of emotions, hope, fear, joy, and despair, all swirled together in a chaotic dance of color. Tommy, look at this, Greta said, her voice barely above a whisper as she stepped closer to the canvas. I turned to see her eyes wide with wonder, yet there was an unmistakable glimmer of fear lurking beneath the surface. It's beautiful, but it feels ominous. Yeah, I replied, my heart racing in my chest. It's like she's channeling something from deep within us, something we're not ready to confront. The artist, who had introduced herself simply as Luna, paused for a moment, her brush hovering above the canvas, as if she were gathering her thoughts. "Art is like a mirror," she said, her voice steady yet ethereal. "It reflects not just what we want to see, but what we need to confront. Sometimes, the darkest parts of ourselves can lead us to the brightest revelations." Greta and I exchanged glances. I could see the conflict churning within her. "What if facing those dark parts is too much for us?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Luna smiled knowingly. "You'll never know until you try. Embrace it. Let it out." With that, she resumed painting, and I felt a chill run down my spine. As I watched, the mural began to transform. The vibrant colors of hope seemed to fade, overshadowed by dark, swirling shadows that crept across the canvas. "Greta, I don't think this is what we wanted," I murmured, anxiety creeping into my voice. "What if we're unleashing something we can't control?" "I don't know, Tommy," she replied, her gaze still fixed on the mural. "But I can't look away. It's like it's telling us a story, our story." Suddenly, the image morphed into a scene that felt hauntingly familiar. I could see silhouettes of figures that resembled us, trapped in a cycle of despair and longing. I felt my heart drop as the realization hit me. These were not just random brushstrokes, they were manifestations of our fears, our regrets. "Tommy, what do we do?" Greta's voice was barely a whisper now, as if she feared that speaking too loudly would shatter the fragile atmosphere. "We have to face it. We can't let it consume us," I replied, trying to sound braver than I felt. "It's just a painting, right? It can't hurt us." But as I spoke those words, I felt an overwhelming sense of dread. The shadows on the mural seemed to thicken, and I could hear a low, echoing growl reverberating through the air, as if the very essence of our fears was coming alive. "What's happening?" Greta gasped, taking a step back. "It feels like it's alive." Luna stepped back from her work, her eyes sparkling with an intensity one had never seen before. "You're right, it is alive. But only because you give it power. Acknowledge your fears, don't run from them." I swallowed hard, my throat dry. The energy in the room shifted, and I could feel the weight of our collective anxieties pressing down on me. I had buried so many of my feelings, thinking that ignoring them would make them disappear. But now, as I stood before this living mural, I realized that they were only waiting for the right moment to resurface. Greta's expression shifted from fear to determination. "Tommy, we can't let this define us. We have to confront it together." "You're right," I replied, my voice steadier. "Let's do this." As we took a step closer to the mural, I felt a surge of adrenaline. "What if we create something new?" I suggested, glancing at Luna. "Can we add to it? Can we change the narrative?" Luna's eyes sparkled with approval. "Yes. Use your emotions. Let your creativity flow. Remember, you are the artists of your own story." Greta nodded, her resolve strengthening. "Let's transform it, Tommy. Let's take back control." With that, we moved toward the mural, my heart racing. Greta picked up a brush, and I followed suit, grabbing another color. We began to apply strokes over the darkened parts, layering our own memories, our hopes, and our dreams on top of the fears that threatened to overwhelm us. "Look, this part represents when we first met," Greta said, her voice breaking through the tension. It was a spark of inspiration. "Let's make it brighter." As we painted, the colors began to blend, creating a harmony I hadn't expected. The dark shadows started to recede, revealing glimpses of light and vibrancy. Each stroke felt like a release, as if we were unburdening ourselves of the weight we had carried for so long. "Tommy, remember that time we went to the art fair and you almost didn't submit your work?" Greta said, laughter bubbling up in her voice. "You were so afraid of rejection." I chuckled, recalling the moment vividly. "Yeah, and you pushed me to do it anyway. That was one of the best decisions I ever made." "Exactly. Let's add that to the mural," she exclaimed, her eyes alight with enthusiasm. "We can show that fear can lead to something beautiful." As we painted, the mural started to take on a new form, transforming from a chaotic representation of our fears into a vibrant tapestry of our shared experiences. The shadows that once loomed over us now became mere accents to a larger picture, a testament to our journey. "Look at how it's changing," I said, breathlessly. "It's almost like we're rewriting our story." Greta's face glowed with excitement. "Yes. We're not just artists, we're also the narrators of our lives. We can choose how we tell our story." Luna stepped back to take a look, her expression a mix of pride and wonder. "You're beginning to understand. This is the power of creation. It's not just about the end result, it's about the process and the choices you make along the way." I could feel a weight lifting off my shoulders, replaced by a sense of liberation. "We're not defined by our fears," I said, my voice stronger now. "We can redefine ourselves through our art." Greta looked at me, her eyes shining with newfound determination. "Together, we can create something that represents who we truly are, flaws and all." As we continued to paint, the room seemed to come alive. The colors swirled around us, and I felt an exhilarating rush of creativity coursing through my veins. It was as if the mural was absorbing our essence, transforming our vulnerabilities into strengths. Suddenly, the shadows that had once dominated the mural began to shimmer, their darkness refracting into a spectrum of colors. It was a mesmerizing sight, and I felt a surge of hope. "We're doing it!" Greta shouted, her laughter ringing through the air like a melody. "We're taking back our narrative." Just as I thought we were nearing completion, the mural began to pulse again, but this time with a rhythm that felt empowering rather than threatening. It was as if the piece was acknowledging our efforts, responding to the energy we had infused into it. "Let's add our finishing touches," I said, my heart racing with excitement. "This is our moment." Greta nodded, and together we began to layer our final strokes, weaving in the dreams we had for the future. I painted a bright sun in the corner, symbolizing hope and new beginnings, while Greta added flowers blooming around it, representing growth and resilience. As we stepped back, the mural glowed with an intensity that took my breath away. The once ominous image had transformed into a vibrant representation of our journey, a tapestry woven with threads of fear, hope, and creativity. "It's beautiful," Greta whispered, tears of joy glistening in her eyes. "I can't believe we did this." Luna approached us, a proud smile on her face. "You've created something extraordinary. You've embraced your fears and turned them into art. This is the essence of creation." I felt a rush of gratitude for this strange journey we had embarked on together. "Thank you, Luna. Thank you for pushing us to confront ourselves." As we stood there, enveloped by the radiant mural, I felt a warmth spreading through me. It was as if I had shed an old skin, emerging renewed and empowered. I glanced at Greta, and in that moment, we shared an unspoken bond, a connection forged in vulnerability and strength. And as the colors shimmered around us, I knew we had not only transformed the mural, but we had also begun to transform ourselves. As I stood before the mirrors, my heart raced. Each reflective surface seemed to ripple with a life of its own, distorting not only my image, but also the memories that lay buried deep within me. Greta was beside me, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and fascination. I could see her reflection morphing, twisting into shapes that echoed her insecurities. "What is happening?" she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't know," I replied, my own voice sounding distant. "But I think we need to look closer." We stepped forward, our reflections becoming clearer as we moved. The first mirror showed me a snapshot of my childhood, a boy with wild, untamed hair, a paintbrush clutched tightly in his hand. He was lost in a world of color, a world where imagination reigned supreme. I remembered those days, how I would spend hours in my room, painting whatever came to my mind. There was no expectation then, no pressure to succeed. Just me and my art. "Tommy," Greta called softly, pulling my attention back. "Look at this one." Her reflection was now a young girl, standing in front of a camera, capturing moments that seemed to flicker like fireflies. But as I looked closer, I saw the sadness etched in her features. The girl's smile was a mask, hiding the fear of never being good enough, never being seen. Greta, this is you, I said, my heart aching for her. That girl, she's still in you, isn't she? Yeah, she whispered, her voice barely a breath. I thought I could leave her behind, but she's always there, isn't she? As we continued to observe, another mirror caught my eye. The reflection was different. It was a version of me that I barely recognized. The boy had grown older, but his eyes were filled with regret. He stood in front of a half-finished painting, colors muddled and chaotic, as if reflecting the turmoil inside me. Why did I stop? I asked, more to myself than to Greta. Why did I let my dreams fade? You didn't let them fade, Greta said, her voice stronger now. You just lost your way. We both did. With each mirror we approached, the reflections began to speak. The boy from my childhood looked directly at me, his eyes piercing through the layers of time. You abandoned me, he said, his voice echoing in the silent room. You chose the path of recognition over the joy of creation. No, I protested, my heart pounding. I was trying to make something of myself. I thought that would make it all worth it. Worth what? The boy challenged. Worth the pain of forgetting who you are? You traded your passion for validation, Tommy. And now look where it got you. I turned to Greta, desperate for support. What do I do? How do I fix this? Face it, she said firmly, stepping closer to the mirror that reflected her younger self. We have to accept what we've been running from. Our fears, our regrets, they're a part of us. We can't just pretend they don't exist. As she spoke, the younger Greta looked at the older version of herself with a mix of longing and disappointment. Why didn't you fight for me? The girl asked. Why did you let the world tell you who you should be? I was scared, Greta admitted, tears welling in her eyes. I thought I had to conform to be accepted, to be successful. Success isn't everything, the young girl replied, her voice soft but firm. You were happiest when you were creating, when you were free. I felt a weight settling on my chest. The truth was undeniable. I had let the fear of failure dictate my choices for too long. I had turned my back on the very essence of who I was. I'm so sorry, I whispered to the boy in the mirror. I didn't mean to abandon you. Then come back, he urged. Reclaim what you've lost. You have the power to create again. Suddenly, the mirrors began to swirl and shift, revealing glimpses of my past. I saw moments of joy, laughter, and creativity intermingled with pain, regret, and self-doubt. Each reflection was a reminder of the choices I had made, the paths I had taken, and the dreams I had forsaken. Tommy, look! Greta exclaimed, pointing to another mirror. This one showed the two of us in a vibrant art studio, surrounded by canvases, paint, and laughter. Our younger selves were free, unburdened by the weight of expectations. That's who we were, I said, my heart swelling with nostalgia. That's who we can be again. Exactly, Greta said, her voice steady. But we need to confront our fears first. Look at what we've become afraid of, and let's face it together. We stepped back, allowing the reflections to sink in. The mirrors showed not just our insecurities, but also our strengths, our passion for art, our creativity, our friendship. I could feel a shift within me, a sense of determination rising to the surface. Let's do it, I said, turning to Greta. Let's accept our fears and let them go. She nodded, her eyes fierce with resolve. Together. As we stood side by side, the reflections began to merge, each version of ourselves coming together in a kaleidoscope of color and emotion. I could feel the energy building, a palpable force that urged us to embrace our true selves. On the count of 3, I said, my voice steady. 1, 2, 3. We reached out towards the mirrors, our hands touching the cool glass. In that moment, a wave of warmth washed over us, and the reflections began to dissolve, revealing our true selves beneath the layers of fear and doubt. I'm ready, I said, feeling lighter, freer. Me too, Greta replied, her smile genuine and bright. As the last remnants of the mirrors faded away, a sense of peace settled within me. I had faced my past, confronted my fears, and reclaimed my passion. And in that moment, I realized that we were not defined by our failures, but by our willingness to rise again, to create, and to embrace the beauty of our journey. "Let's go," I said, taking Greta's hand. "We have a world to create." Together, we stepped away from the mirrors, ready to face whatever lay ahead, knowing that we were stronger for having faced our true selves. As the tremors beneath our feet subsided, I steadied myself against the damp wall of the mirror room, my heart racing from the weight of the reflections I had just faced. Greta and I exchanged glances, our expressions a mix of confusion and determination. The air was thick with a sense of urgency, and I could feel the pull of something deeper beckoning us to move forward. "Do you think we should keep going?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, as if speaking any louder might shatter the fragile atmosphere around us. Greta nodded, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and resolve. "I don't think we have a choice. We need to find a way out of here." We stepped cautiously into the next corridor, the cool air wrapping around us like a shroud. The walls seemed to pulse with an energy that felt almost alive, and I could hear the faintest whispering, like echoes of long-forgotten secrets. As we walked, I noticed a heavy wooden door at the end of the hallway, ornate and imposing. It felt as though it had been waiting for us, as if it was the key to unlocking the next chapter of our surreal journey. "Do you hear that?" I asked, tilting my head to listen more closely. Greta paused, her brow furrowing in concentration. "It sounds like whispering," she replied, her voice trailing off in uncertainty. "Let's check it out," I suggested, feeling an inexplicable pull towards the door. As we approached, the whispers grew louder, forming words that danced just out of reach of our understanding. I reached for the handle, and with a gentle push, the door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit library filled with towering shelves of dusty books. The air was thick with the smell of aged paper and ink, a scent that both comforted and intrigued me. "Wow," Greta breathed, stepping inside. "This place feels ancient." I stepped in beside her, the floorboards creaking under our weight. "Look at all these books," I marveled, running my fingers along the spines. "They're practically glowing." As we ventured deeper into the library, I noticed that each book seemed to hum with energy, as if they were alive, waiting to share their stories. The whispers grew louder, coalescing into coherent phrases that floated around us. "Find the truth, discover the past, your choices matter." Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, a tall man with a flowing robe and an air of mystery. His eyes sparkled with wisdom, and he carried a staff that seemed to pulse with light. "Welcome, travelers," he said, his voice deep and melodic. "I am the storyteller of this realm. You stand at the crossroads of your lives, and the stories within these books hold the key to understanding your journey." "Stories?" I echoed, glancing at Greta, who looked equally intrigued. "What do you mean?" "The tales within these pages are not mere fables," he explained, stepping closer. "They are the chronicles of your past, your fears, your desires. Each decision you have made, every path you have chosen, has led you to this moment. If you wish to escape this place, you must listen to your story." Greta stepped forward, curiosity lighting her eyes. "Can we really hear our own stories?" The storyteller smiled knowingly. "Indeed. Each book contains a fragment of your essence. Choose wisely, for the echoes of your past will guide you towards acceptance and understanding." I felt a strange thrill at the thought of uncovering the truths hidden within my own story. "What do we do?" I asked, eager to delve into this new revelation. "Select a book," he instructed, gesturing towards the shelves. "Let it choose you, and listen to what it has to say." Greta and I exchanged glances again, a silent agreement passing between us. We approached the nearest shelf, and as I reached out, a book seemed to shimmer brighter than the rest, its cover adorned with a swirling design that danced in the dim light. "This one," I said, pulling it from the shelf. The moment I held it in my hands, I felt a wave of warmth coursing through me, as if the book was alive and breathing. Greta picked up a slender volume, its title barely visible, hidden beneath layers of dust. "I think I'll take this one," she said, her voice filled with excitement. Now, open your books, the storyteller urged. Let the words reveal your truths. I took a deep breath and opened my book, the pages crackling under my fingertips. A soft glow enveloped me, and the words began to swirl around, forming images and scenes that flickered to life before my eyes. I found myself standing in a sunlit park, a younger version of myself sitting on a bench, sketching furiously. The joy on my face was palpable, but as I continued to watch, the scene shifted. The little boy in the drawing, the one I had abandoned in pursuit of recognition, looked up at me with wide, questioning eyes. "Why did you leave me?" he asked, his voice echoing in the air. My heart clenched at the question. "I thought I had to grow up," I murmured, tears pricking at my eyes. "I thought I had to chase dreams instead of nurturing them." Suddenly, I was pulled back to the library, the storyteller's gaze piercing through me. "What do you see?" he asked gently. I struggled to find the words. "I see the boy I used to be, the artist who was never afraid to create." "Let that boy guide you," he encouraged. Meanwhile, I noticed Greta beside me, her eyes wide as she absorbed the visions from her own book. "I see my childhood," she whispered, a mixture of nostalgia and pain in her voice. "I see myself with my family, taking photos, capturing moments. But I also see a moment of loss, a photograph I never took." "What do you mean?" I asked, intrigued by her revelation. "There was a time when I let fear stop me from capturing something beautiful," she said, her voice trembling. "I was too scared to click the shutter, to embrace the vulnerability of creating." The storyteller nodded, his expression one of understanding. "These moments define you, but they do not have to bind you. Accept them, and you will find the strength to move forward." Greta closed her eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath. "I need to let go of that fear," she said resolutely. As I continued to explore my book, I was flooded with memories of laughter and creativity, but also of doubt and regret. I realized that I had been holding onto the past, allowing it to dictate my present. The boy in my memory had never truly left. He was still a part of me, waiting to be embraced. "Your fears are not your enemies," the storyteller said, his voice echoing in the vastness of the library. "They are the shadows that follow you, but they can also be the light that guides you out of darkness." I looked at Greta, seeing the fire in her eyes as she confronted her own fears. "We have to accept everything about ourselves, don't we?" I asked, feeling the weight of my realizations. "Yes," she replied softly, her voice steady. "We need to acknowledge our pasts, no matter how painful they may be." As I closed my book, a sense of clarity washed over me. I felt lighter, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from my shoulders. I turned to the storyteller, my heart racing with newfound determination. "We're ready to hear more," I declared. "Then let the stories continue," he said with a nod, stepping aside to reveal more books, each glowing with the promise of truths yet to be uncovered. Together, Greta and I reached for more volumes, ready to delve deeper into the stories that would illuminate our paths, ready to confront what lay ahead and embrace the power of our choices. As the echoes of our past choices lingered in the dimly lit corridor, I felt a strange blend of fear and determination coursing through my veins. Greta walked beside me, her brow furrowed in thought, her camera hanging from her neck like a lifeline. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows on the walls as we approached the end of the corridor. I could sense the weight of time pressing down on us, the air thick with unspoken words and unresolved emotions. "Tommy," Greta said, breaking the silence that had enveloped us. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper, but it carried an urgency that made me turn to her. "What do you think we're supposed to do now?" I paused for a moment, trying to gather my thoughts. "Lucas said we need to face our fears, right? But it feels like we're running out of time. I can feel it in my bones." Greta nodded, her expression a mix of concern and determination. "We can't stay here forever. We have to figure this out." As we moved forward, I spotted a glimmering light at the end of the corridor. It flickered, drawing me in like a moth to a flame. "Look!" I pointed ahead. "That must be where we need to go." We quickened our pace, our footsteps echoing off the walls. The light grew brighter, illuminating the space around us. I could feel my heart racing, a mixture of anticipation and dread. What awaited us behind that light? When we reached it, I realized it was a large, ornate door, unlike anything I had seen before. Intricate carvings covered its surface, depicting scenes of struggle and triumph. "This must be it," I said, placing my hand on the cool surface of the door. "Do you think we're ready?" Greta asked, her eyes searching mine for reassurance. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment press down on me. "We have to be. We've come this far." With a gentle push, the door creaked open, revealing a vast room filled with towering bookshelves that seemed to stretch endlessly into the darkness. Books lined the shelves, their spines adorned with titles that whispered secrets I longed to uncover. As we stepped inside, the air shifted, carrying the scent of aged paper and forgotten stories. "This place feels alive," Greta murmured, looking around in awe. A soft rustling caught our attention, and a figure emerged from the shadows. An elderly man with a long, flowing beard and spectacles perched on the edge of his nose approached us. "Welcome," he said, his voice warm and inviting. "I am the Keeper of Stories. You've come seeking answers, haven't you?" I exchanged a glance with Greta, uncertainty flickering in my chest. "Yes," I replied cautiously. "We need to understand our past, our choices." The man smiled knowingly. "Every choice you made has led you to this moment. You are on the brink of discovering the truths that bind you. Would you like to hear the story of your lives?" Greta and I nodded in unison, the weight of our decision settling over us. "Yes, please," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor of excitement. The keeper gestured for us to sit at a small table in the center of the room. As we settled into our seats, he placed an ancient tome before us, its pages yellowed with age. "This book holds the stories of your lives," he explained. "Each choice, each path taken or forsaken is woven into its fabric. Are you ready to listen?" I felt a shiver of apprehension. What if we don't like what we hear? The keeper chuckled softly. "Life is not always pleasant, but understanding is the first step toward acceptance. Are you ready?" Greta squeezed my hand, and I nodded again, feeling the strength of her presence beside me. "We're ready." With a solemn nod, the keeper opened the book, and the pages began to turn on their own, revealing scenes from our past. I watched in awe as images sprang to life, moments I had forgotten and others I wished I could forget. "Tommy, this is you at the art fair." The keeper pointed to a scene where a younger version of me stood nervously by a display of my paintings. "You remember how you felt that day?" I could feel the heat of embarrassment creeping up my neck. I was terrified. I thought no one would care. "Yet, look at your passion," the keeper encouraged, his eyes twinkling. "You were alive with creativity." Greta leaned closer, studying the scene. "But you didn't follow through," she said gently. "You abandoned it for, what? Approval?" I winced, the truth stinging. I thought if I chased success, I'd find happiness. But I lost something along the way. The pages turned again, revealing another moment. This time, it was Greta, her teenage self standing in front of a camera, capturing the world through her lens. "You were so full of hope," I noted, recalling how she always had a way of seeing beauty in the mundane. "But I let fear hold me back," Greta admitted, her voice trembling. "I didn't believe I was good enough. So, I hid behind the camera instead of stepping into the light." The keeper nodded. "You both sought validation outside yourselves, but true fulfillment comes from within." As the book continued to reveal our stories, I saw the threads that connected us, our shared dreams, our fears, and the moments we let slip away. Each revelation felt like peeling back layers of our souls, exposing the raw, vulnerable parts we had tried to bury. "Look," the keeper said, turning a page to reveal a moment from our recent past. "This is the day you met again after years apart." I felt a rush of nostalgia as I watched our younger selves standing in the cafe, laughter spilling between us. "That was a good day," I said softly. "But we fell back into old patterns," Greta replied, her eyes clouded with regret. We were both stuck, afraid to reach for something more. Perhaps this journey is about breaking those patterns, the keeper suggested. You must acknowledge the pain and the joy, the fear and the love. I took a deep breath, feeling a weight lift as I began to understand. It's about accepting who we are and what we've done. Greta nodded, her expression resolute. And using that acceptance to create something new. The keeper smiled at our realization. Exactly. But to truly escape this place, you must be willing to confront your deepest fears and desires. Are you ready for that? I glanced at Greta, who met my eyes with a fierce determination. We are, she said firmly. The keeper closed the book, and the room around us began to shimmer. Then it is time to return to the corridor. You are not alone in this. Trust in each other. With those words, we stood, the weight of our past still lingering, but now accompanied by a newfound sense of purpose. As we walked toward the door, I felt a surge of hope. We had faced our past, and now it was time to embrace our future together. The corridor stretched out before us, the light at its end gleaming like a beacon. I took Greta's hand, squeezing it tightly. Whatever happens next, I'm with you. Me too, Tommy, she replied, her voice steady and strong. Let's do this. As we stepped into the corridor, the walls seemed to pulse with energy. I could feel the air around us shifting, the weight of our choices lifting and transforming into something lighter, something hopeful. It was time to face what lay ahead, to confront the challenges that awaited us. And this time, I felt ready. Together, we would navigate the darkness, illuminating our path with the light of our newfound understanding and acceptance. As we stood in the dimly lit corridor, the air thick with an unsettling energy, I felt my heart race. The shadows seemed to twist and writhe, giving life to the darkest corners of our fears. I glanced at Greta, her brow furrowed in concentration. Together, we had delved into the depths of our pasts, unearthing memories that left us vulnerable and raw. But now, we were faced with something more sinister, a creature that embodied our collective fears, lurking just beyond the edge of our awareness. Tommy, Greta whispered, her voice trembling slightly. What if we can't face it? I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing thoughts. We have to, Greta. We've come too far to turn back now. This creature, it's just a manifestation of our insecurities. We can't let it control us. As if summoned by our words, the creature emerged from the shadows. It was an amorphous mass, a swirling amalgamation of darkness and despair, with tendrils that reached out like grasping fingers. Its eyes, if you could call them that, were voids, reflecting our fears back at us. I felt a chill run down my spine as I recognized the shapes forming within it, the fear of failure, the sting of rejection, and the haunting whispers of self-doubt. Tommy! Greta shrieked, her voice echoing through the corridor. What do we do? I grasped her hand, feeling the warmth of her skin against the cold terror that surrounded us. We need to confront it. We've faced our pasts, now we have to face this thing. Remember what the artist said about creation? We can turn this fear into something beautiful. Greta nodded, determination flickering in her eyes. You're right. But how? It's so powerful. Suddenly, an idea struck me like lightning. Your camera, Greta. Use it. Capture it. Sometimes, facing something means looking at it from a different angle. Her eyes widened as she understood. You think it will work? It has to, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Fear loses its power when we expose it. Greta took a step forward, raising her camera with trembling hands. Okay, here goes nothing. She adjusted the lens, her brow furrowing in concentration. The creature writhed, sensing her intent, but she stood firm, her resolve hardening. Focus on it, I urged. Don't let it distract you. Think about what it represents for you. Greta inhaled deeply, her eyes narrowing as she honed in on the creature. It represents my fear of never being good enough. Of always being in the shadow of others. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried the weight of her truth. Then capture that, I said, stepping beside her. Show it for what it really is. With a deep breath, Greta pressed the shutter. The flash illuminated the corridor, momentarily dispelling the darkness. In that brief moment, the creature recoiled, its form flickering as if caught off guard by the light. The shadows around us seemed to retreat, and I felt a surge of hope. Again, I encouraged. Keep going. Greta shot again, her confidence growing with each click of the shutter. The creature morphed, its features becoming clearer, a grotesque reflection of our fears. I see it, Tommy. I can see all the things I've tried to hide. She was in a trance now, her passion ignited. Good. Let it out. I shouted, feeling the adrenaline coursing through my veins. This is our moment. With each photograph, the creature's form began to dissolve, the shadows lifting as if they were being banished by the light. I could see the fear in its eyes, our eyes, and for the first time, I felt a sense of control. Greta, it's working. We're taking its power away. She nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks, but there was a fierce determination in her gaze. I won't let it define me. I'm more than my fears. Then, as if fueled by her courage, the creature lunged forward, its darkness swirling violently. No! I shouted, stepping protectively in front of Greta. You can't have us. I realized then that it wasn't just her fear, it was mine too. The fear of failure, the fear of being forgotten, the fear of never achieving my dreams. Tommy, the camera. Greta urged, her eyes wide with realization. We need to show it our hope, too. I quickly pulled out my sketchbook, flipping through the pages until I found the drawing I had almost forgotten. It was a simple sketch, a representation of my childhood dream, a canvas filled with color and light. This is what I want to create, I exclaimed, holding it up for the creature to see. This is my hope. Greta gasped, and in that moment, the creature hesitated, its form flickering. Tommy, show it your dreams. Show it everything you want to become. I nodded, my heart racing as I held the drawing high. This is who I am. This is who we are. I shouted at the creature, pouring all my emotions into my voice. We refuse to be defined by you. As we stood together, united in purpose, the creature began to dissolve, its darkness evaporating into the air like mist in the morning sun. I could see the remnants of our fears fading away, replaced by the vibrant colors of our aspirations and the warmth of our friendship. Look! Greta cried, lowering her camera. It's working. It's disappearing. The creature's form shimmered, the darkness unraveling into wisps of smoke that drifted away, leaving behind a sense of lightness in the air. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, the chains of doubt and fear shattering like glass. Together, I said, glancing at Greta, we're stronger than our fears. She smiled, her eyes sparkling with newfound confidence. Yes, we are. In that moment, we had transformed the darkness into light, and as the last vestiges of the creature faded away, I realized that we had faced our fears not only as individuals, but as friends. We had confronted the shadows of our past, and in doing so, we had forged a path toward our future. Let's keep going, Greta said, her voice steady and full of hope. I believe we can face whatever comes next. With a sense of purpose, I nodded in agreement. Together, we stepped forward, ready to embrace whatever awaited us in the next chapter of our journey. The moment we defeated the shadowy creature, a wave of relief washed over me. It felt as if a heavy weight had been lifted from my chest, and I could finally breathe deeply again. Greta stood beside me, her camera still clutched in her hand, her eyes reflecting a mix of triumph and disbelief. The dark manifestation of our fears had crumbled into nothingness, dissolving like mist in the morning sun. Did we really just do that? Greta asked, her voice still trembling with the adrenaline of the encounter. She looked at me, searching for assurance. I nodded slowly, still processing the surreal experience. Yeah, we did. We faced it together. The thought of our shared courage made my heart swell. It was a testament to our friendship and our determination to rise above our insecurities. As we stepped away from the remnants of the creature, a glimmer of light caught my eye at the end of the corridor. It flickered enticingly, almost beckoning us. "Look over there," I pointed, my voice gaining strength. "That light, it might be a way out." Greta squinted towards the glow. "Do you think it's safe?" "Honestly, I have no idea." I chuckled nervously. "But I think we've faced enough for one day. If we can handle that, whatever it was, I think we can handle anything." She smiled, a spark of determination igniting in her eyes. "Then let's go." We walked together, our footsteps echoing through the corridor. The sense of camaraderie that had developed between us felt palpable, almost like a lifeline. As we approached the light, I realized it was a door, intricately carved with symbols that seemed to shift and change as we drew near. It was as if the door itself was alive, reacting to our presence. "Should we knock?" Greta joked, half laughing, half nervous. "Why not? It's not like we haven't already broken every rule in the book," I replied, chuckling. With that, I reached out and pushed the door open. We were greeted by a blinding brightness that flooded our senses. As our eyes adjusted, we found ourselves standing in a vast, open space. The walls seemed to shimmer, reflecting the light in a dazzling display of colors. It was a room filled with mirrors, each one uniquely framed and crafted, creating an almost kaleidoscopic effect. "Wow," Greta whispered, stepping forward to examine the nearest mirror. "This place is incredible." I followed her, my curiosity piqued. As I looked into the mirror, the reflection that stared back at me was not just my physical self. I could see moments from my life flitting by, like film reels. There I was as a child, painting with reckless abandon, and then the image shifted to me as a teenager, standing in front of a canvas that felt too daunting to approach. "Tommy," Greta's voice broke through my reverie. "Look." I turned to see her staring at her own reflection, her face a mixture of shock and contemplation. "What do you see?" I asked gently. "It's like I'm seeing all the times I didn't believe in myself," she said, her voice trembling. "I see my childhood photos, the ones I never wanted to show anyone, and I see the moments I chose to put my camera down instead of picking it up." "Greta, you've accomplished so much," I encouraged her, though I felt the weight of my own failures creeping in. "You're an amazing photographer. You've captured moments that most people wouldn't even notice." "I know, but," she paused, running a hand through her hair, visibly frustrated. "I never see those moments in the way you do. I feel like I'm always trying to catch up." "Maybe you need to stop running and start embracing what you've already achieved," I suggested, hoping to instill some confidence in her. "These reflections, they're part of us, but they don't define us." As if the mirrors could hear us, they seemed to shimmer more intensely, the reflections morphing into more profound moments of doubt, joy, and pain. I felt my own insecurities rise to the surface, the guilt of abandoning my childhood dreams wrapping around me like a vice. "I see the boy who wanted to be an artist," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "But I also see the man who gave up on him for a chance at something better." "Tommy," Greta said softly, "you're still that boy. You can still be that artist." I shook my head, overwhelmed. "But at what cost? I've lost so much time." "Time is just a construct," she countered, her tone firm yet gentle. "You've learned, you've grown. That's what matters. We can't change the past, but we can choose how we move forward." Her words resonated deep within me, and I felt a shift in my perspective. Maybe I had given up too easily. Maybe there was still time to reclaim what I thought was lost. Suddenly, the mirrors began to ripple, and the reflections started speaking, their voices a chorus of our fears and doubts. "Tommy, you'll never be good enough," one voice taunted. "Greta, you'll always be in the shadows of others," another echoed. We both stepped back, overwhelmed by the onslaught of negativity. "No!" I shouted, my voice rising above the cacophony. "You don't get to dictate who we are." Greta joined me, her voice steady. We are more than our fears. We are our hopes, our dreams, and our passions. As we shouted our declarations, the mirrors began to crack, the reflections warping and distorting. The voices grew quieter, fading into the background until all that remained was a soft hum. We can break free, I said, my heart racing. We just have to believe in ourselves. I believe in you, Tommy, Greta replied, her eyes locking onto mine with fierce determination. And together, we can believe in each other. With newfound resolve, we moved towards the center of the room, where the light seemed to concentrate, illuminating a path through the chaos. I felt a surge of energy as I reached for Greta's hand, intertwining our fingers. Let's get out of here, I said, my voice strong. We pushed through the remnants of our fears, stepping into the light. The energy enveloped us, lifting us as we emerged from the room of mirrors. The corridor felt different now. It was charged with possibility. We had faced our pasts and emerged stronger, but I knew our journey was far from over. As we walked, a tremor shook the ground beneath our feet. The walls began to ripple, and I could hear the distant echo of laughter, a sound both haunting and inviting. What's happening? Greta asked, looking around nervously. I don't know, but I think we're close to something big. We just need to keep moving, I replied, pushing forward. The light ahead flickered again, and I could feel the energy building around us. Whatever comes next, we face it together, I said, squeezing Greta's hand. Together, she echoed, her voice steady despite the uncertainty that loomed ahead. As we approached the next threshold, I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. The weight of our experiences had prepared us for what lay ahead. We were no longer just two artists lost in the chaos of our insecurities. We were allies, ready to confront whatever awaited us. The ground shook violently, and I stumbled, but Greta steadied me. We've got this, Tommy. Yeah, I replied, determination coursing through my veins. Let's do this. With a final surge of courage, we pushed open the door ahead, ready to face whatever awaited us on the other side. As the elevator doors slid open, the sudden flood of light was almost blinding. I squinted, stepping forward with a mix of excitement and trepidation. The atmosphere felt different here, charged with a palpable energy. The air smelled faintly of paint and varnish, a nostalgic scent that tugged at my memories. As my eyes adjusted, I took in the space around me, a sprawling gallery filled with vibrant colors, each canvas telling a different story. The walls were adorned with artwork, pieces that felt both familiar and unsettling. Tommy, look! Greta exclaimed, her voice filled with awe as she pointed towards a large canvas dominating the far wall. Is that your painting? I stepped closer, my heart racing. Indeed, it was a piece I had created years ago, a vivid explosion of colors that had once represented my hopes and dreams. The brushstrokes felt alive beneath my fingertips as I traced the contours of the image. Yet, there was something hauntingly off about it. The colors were darker, more muted than I remembered. It was as if the painting had absorbed the weight of my insecurities over the years. I thought I lost this, I murmured, memories flooding back. I abandoned it for something more marketable, I guess. Greta moved beside me, her expression a mix of sympathy and understanding. We all have pieces of ourselves we leave behind, she said softly, her gaze drifting to another canvas that caught her interest. Look at this one. It's incredible, so raw and emotional. We walked through the gallery, each step echoing in the vast space. Each painting seemed to resonate with a different part of our journey. I could see the echoes of our struggles reflected in the brushstrokes. Greta paused in front of a piece that depicted a chaotic cityscape, a flurry of colors clashing together, a representation of her own tumultuous feelings about her photography career. Why did I ever let fear dictate my choices? She whispered, her voice trembling with regret. I used to be so fearless with my camera, now I feel like I've lost that spark. Maybe this is a chance to find it again, I replied, trying to inject some optimism into the air. Look at these pieces, they're not just reminders of what we've lost, but also of what we can still create. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, startling us. It was Lucas, the friend I thought I'd lost to time and distance. His presence felt surreal, like a ghost from a past I wasn't sure I wanted to revisit. "Welcome to your gallery of regrets and dreams," he said, a smirk playing on his lips. "Surprised to see me?" "Lucas, how are you here?" I stammered, my heart pounding with confusion. "We thought you were gone," he finished for me, his tone dripping with irony. "I'm not gone, Tommy. I've always been here, lurking in the corners of your mind. I'm the part of you that you've tried to forget." Greta stepped closer to me, her eyes darting between us. "What do you mean? Are you a projection?" "Exactly," Lucas replied, his voice smooth and enticing. "I represent every dream you've shelved, every aspiration you've abandoned. You're in control, but only if you realize it." I felt a rush of anger. "So you're telling me you're just a manifestation of my failures? That's ridiculous." "Is it?" Lucas challenged, raising an eyebrow. "Look around you. Every painting here is a fragment of your past, every stroke a reminder of the paths you didn't take. This is your chance to confront it, to decide whether you want to play it safe or embrace the chaos of creation." I clenched my fists, torn between frustration and an unsettling sense of truth. And what if I don't want to confront anything? What if I just want to leave? "Leaving means accepting the status quo," Lucas replied. "You can choose to stay in your comfort zone, but you know deep down that it won't lead you to happiness. You have to confront what you've avoided for too long." Greta, who had been silent, finally spoke up. "What if we create something new? Something that reflects who we are now, rather than who we were?" Lucas chuckled softly. "Ah, but that's the beauty of creation. It's never just about the new. It's about weaving together the past and the present, transforming your regrets into something meaningful." "Let's do it," I said suddenly, the words tumbling out before I could think. "Let's create something together, Greta. Let's embrace everything, the light and the dark." Greta's eyes lit up, her enthusiasm infectious. "Yes. Let's turn this gallery of regrets into a canvas of our future." With newfound determination, we moved towards a blank wall, a stark contrast to the vividness surrounding us. Lucas stepped back, a knowing smile on his face. "You've made your choice. Now, let the magic happen." As we stood before the blank canvas, I felt a surge of creativity coursing through me. Greta took out her camera, snapping pictures of the empty space, the light and shadows playing across it. I grabbed a palette and began to mix colors, letting my emotions guide each choice. "Remember, it's about honesty," Greta reminded me as she captured the moment. "We can't shy away from what we feel." "Right," I nodded, my brush dancing across the canvas. "Let's pour our fears and hopes into this." With each stroke, I felt the weight of my past begin to lift. The colors swirled together, forming a beautiful chaos that reflected our journey. I could hear Greta's camera clicking rhythmically, capturing not just the process, but the essence of our collaboration. "Look at it come to life," she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "It's so raw, so real." "Just like us," I replied, my heart swelling with pride. "We're not just painting, we're reclaiming who we are." As we worked, Lucas remained a silent observer. I could see the pride in his eyes, but also a hint of something deeper, perhaps even sadness. He was part of me, after all, a reminder of the choices I had made. "Are you ready for the final touch?" Greta asked, stepping back to admire our work. The canvas had transformed into a vibrant representation of our intertwined journeys, filled with both light and shadow. I took a deep breath, feeling the gravity of the moment. "Yeah, let's do it." With a steady hand, I added the final strokes, a blend of colors that symbolized our acceptance of both our past and future. As I stepped back, I felt a sense of completion wash over me. "That's it," I breathed. "We've done it." Greta's face lit up with joy. "It's beautiful. Look at what we created together." But as we admired our work, I noticed something strange. The paintings around us began to shimmer, as if they were alive. The vibrant colors pulsated, and suddenly, I could see them changing, morphing into images that depicted my fears, my regrets, and my dreams colliding together. Lucas, what's happening? I asked, a sense of urgency creeping into my voice. He stepped forward, his expression serious. You've tapped into something powerful. But remember, with creation comes transformation. You must decide how to move forward. What do you mean? Greta asked, her brow furrowed. The choice is yours, Lucas said, gesturing towards the paintings. You can either remain in this gallery, forever bound by your past, or you can step through your creation and redefine your future. I exchanged a glance with Greta, the weight of the decision hanging heavily in the air. What do you want? I asked her, my voice steady. I want to be free, she replied, her gaze unwavering. I want to create without fear. Then let's do it, I said, resolute. Let's step through. Together, we approached the canvas, our hearts pounding in unison. As we reached out, a warm light enveloped us, pulling us into the artwork itself. In an instant, we found ourselves standing on the other side, in a vibrant world that felt alive. The colors surrounded us, swirling and dancing in a beautiful chaos. I turned to Greta, her eyes wide with wonder. We did it, I whispered, a sense of elation washing over me. But as we took a step forward, I felt a familiar presence beside us. Lucas appeared, no longer a projection, but a tangible part of this new reality. Welcome to your future, he said, his voice echoing around us. You've chosen to be the artists of your own lives. Embrace it. As we stood in this new world, I realized that it wasn't just about the past we left behind or the regrets we faced. It was about the endless possibilities that lay ahead, waiting for us to explore, to create, and to redefine who we were meant to be. Let's make it count, Greta said, her hand finding mine. Together, I replied, and as we stepped forward into the unknown, I felt a sense of freedom that I had long thought lost.